We survived 200 days in hardcore Minecraft. This isn't a normal 200 days video, this is duo 200 days. This means if either one of us dies, we have to start again. Will we both survive until the end of the 200 days? Keep watching to find out. If you haven't already seen 100 days of duo hardcore Minecraft, then go click in the top right now, and then come back to this video afterwards. But anyways, if you did see the first 100 days, you'd know that we killed the Ender Dragon, killed the Wither, and got a full set of netherite armor. And in these 200 days, we want to get an elytra, get a full beacon, and conquer a raid. Anyways, let's get straight into it on day 101. So day 101 was finally here, and we decided to start it by watching the sunrise. After that, we decided to get straight to work and do a bit of farming. Then I decided to say hello to the sheep and give them some wheat, and then of course, murder some cows. I then greeted my dogs and made them make a smaller dog. It was pretty cute, not gonna lie. We then made ourselves some food, and went to check up on the villagers. But to our surprise, their mud hut had been destroyed by an enderman. So we avenged the villagers, and then set out on a quest to get some more. Midway through our journey, it was getting dark, so we decided to sleep. And that was the first day of these 100 days done. And so on the morning of day 102, we continued searching for the village. And when we got there, we decided to strip the village of its remaining resources. And I decided to use a boat to break hay bales, because why not? And then it was night, so we went to bed. On day 103, we tricked the villagers into our boats. Little did they know they'd now be our baby producing slaves for the rest of these 100 days. We followed the river towards the sea, and when we got there, gamers and I split up, and I managed to get myself lost, so I had to sleep on this abandoned island. On day 104, I wasted no time in getting back to base, and then we lost some years of our lives due to stress from trying to get the villagers into minecarts. Although this did happen, which was kind of funny. And when we finally got these stupid villagers into our compound, we locked them in an ugly house as punishment. As you can see, gamers really hated them at this point. The next day I made a nice little transport system for the baby villagers. Meanwhile, gamers used his amazing building skills to build a skylight for the villagers. Day 106 was filled with more villager stuff. I ran outside to find gamers staring at two villagers and their newborn baby. He was being a bit weird. We tried to funnel the villagers into where we wanted them to go, but the baby villager was having none of it. He just wanted to play. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the villagers made another baby. Little did the baby villagers know they had been born into captivity and would now be our property for the rest of these 100 days. We managed to entice the baby villagers out of their pen with some bread. But for some reason, they liked these little holes and decided to stay in them. This was very annoying. And then finally, out of nowhere, one of them decided to jump into the farm, which was perfect. I then rewarded that behavior by swiftly killing his sibling. Trust me, it deserved it for how annoying it was. Then it was the adults' turn, and they weren't too happy about us capturing one of their children and murdering the other one, so they weren't very cooperative. But eventually we managed to trap them in their trapdoors, where they would remain for the rest of their lives. Day 107 was a boring day working out the kinks in our villager breeder, and then on day 109 it was finally working, and the baby villagers were carried off to a little cave where they could grow up with no sunlight, just how they like it. Day 109 was spent fixing more problems with the villager breeder and building a staircase out of the baby villager cave. On the morning of day 110, it was time to make a puppy. This was the beginning of my dog army. And then we spent the rest of the day trying to get the villager breeder to work again. I spent day 111 picking up lecterns and placing them back down again to try and get a mending villager. Meanwhile, Gamers was decorating the staircase. On day 112, I continued grinding for a mending villager, until there it was, our very own mending trade. I was very happy with this because I was about to fall asleep if I had to place another lectern. A few moments later, and I managed to secure a feather falling 4-buck as well. This was my lucky day. And whilst I was doing this, Gamers got us a nice farming villager. I spent all of day 13 mining for gold in the nether, because I knew we would need gold to cure villagers in the future. For some strange reason, these pigs didn't like me stealing their gold, so I shot them in the face with some arrows. That'll teach them for standing up for what's rightfully theirs. Gamers spent day 13 constructing this rather nice staircase. The next day, Gamers joined me in the nether for a little bit, and then we started construction on a nice little melon farm. On day 115, I gathered resources to make fermented spider eyes, which I then used to make splash potions of weakness. Meanwhile, Gamers continued to work on the melon farm, and we spent the last few minutes of the day waiting for a melon to grow, but with no success. That night, I gathered a crowd of zombies, whilst also saving Gamers from a creeper. We narrowed the crowd down to just one zombie, and after a while of trying, we managed to persuade the zombie to make the villagers green. But in the process, we sadly lost a villager. We were just praying it wasn't the mending villager. We then took care of our good friend Mr. Zombie, and cured our villagers. Once the villagers had recovered, we were relieved to find out that it was the mending villager that survived. We were very happy about this. And I spent the rest of the day farming for melons and buying a bunch of mending books. Day 117 was spent farming and getting some more mending books. By day 118, I was fed up with the amount of seeds we were getting, so I decided to make a semi-automatic composter. It worked really well in that it got rid of all the seeds, but it was quite noisy. This was also the day I decided to upgrade my helmet from Blast Protection 4 to Regular Protection. And as a bonus, I got these pretty nice enchantments with it too. I kicked off day 119 by making my armor a lot better. And of course I added mending on everything. Oh, and I also put mending on all my tools as well. And the rest of the day included me struggling to craft an anvil and taking my dogs on a night walk to the melon farm. I think they enjoyed it. We were determined to get an elytra before day 30, and we knew we'd need feather falling if we were going to survive the end cities. So I spent the next 3 days placing and picking up lecterns to try and get a feather falling 4 trait. During this time, I found myself really hating that zombie that killed the feather falling villager earlier. Until finally, on day 122, I got a feather falling 3 trade and decided to settle for it. So I got some emeralds and bought the book to lock in the trade. That night we set about killing as many creepers as we could so that we could craft rockets for when we get an elytra. This is also where I got used as a human tennis ball by 2 skeletons whilst I was fighting a creeper. I don't really take too kindly to that, so I killed them both. The next morning we equipped ourselves with all the potions, food and blocks we would need to conquer the end cities. And then we set out on our voyage to get some elytras. We travelled through the night over a vast array of landscapes. Once we got to this snowy biome, we knew we were close. And I took some time to say hi to this polar bear and give him some food so he didn't eat me. We continued on our journey into the night of day 124. This is where we had to kill a few of those weird grey skeletons that make you slow. I hate them guys. And there it was, we had found the stronghold. Also, if you're wondering why we didn't note down the stronghold the first time, we did, but I accidentally chucked the note in the bin. My bad, sorry gamers. Anyways, as the sun was rising in the overworld, we hopped into the end. And quickly made our way to the little gateway and teleported through it. We then splashed ourselves with swiftness and then ran along the main island. We figured this was our best chance of finding an end city. And sure enough, only about 200 blocks later, we found an end city. We were shocked at how little time this took. Gamers and I began a race to the ship, as we decided whoever got there first gets to get the first elytra and fly to the next end city to get the other one an elytra. Although I was fast, Gamers was faster and guaranteed himself the first elytra. Gamers then left to get me an elytra, and whilst he was gone I was hard at work looting the end city and finding an ender chest for myself. Meanwhile, Gamers had found another end city and had managed to get me an elytra. This was great news to hear. He gave it to me and I couldn't help but think that I looked like a moth. But flying around was very fun. And once we had finished looting up the end city for all the shulkers we could find, we decided to head back with one of our 3 goals completed. We arrived back on the night of day 126 and went straight to sleep. The next day we practiced using our elytras, and I was finally able to show off my Christmas skin, which a fan made me. I also bred my dogs again. I then decided to collect some pumpkins whilst doing some pumpkin parkour. Day 128 was here and our pumpkins and melons were starting to pile up. And I did my best Luke the Notable impression I could do so far. After that I made some shulkers, and then it was time to put our murdering skills to good use protecting our compound. Of course the main reason for this was to get gunpowder for rockets, and on this night there was no shortage of creepers. On day 129 I was having some PC problems, so I only have this little bit of footage of me breeding my dogs. On day 130, we were fed up with our items having low durability. So we did what any Minecraft player would do and start building an XP farm. But we weren't going to build any old XP farm. We decided to build an Enderman XP farm in the end. We used resources which gamers had kindly gathered in the days before and nervously built down to Y level 0 in the end. This was very scary to do. We then built out about 300 blocks using leaves so Enderman couldn't spawn on them, and 300 blocks away from the main island we decided to build the Enderman farm. This consisted of a spawning platform and a place where the Enderman would get stuck trying to attack an Endermite. But there was one problem. We had forgotten to name the name tag, so I had to fly back and name it. On my way back to the stronghold, my elytra nearly ran out of durability, so I had to walk the rest of the way. During my travels, I spotted an enemy base that I would come back to later, and I killed a rabbit, just for fun. Once I got back into the end, I named the endermite Little Purple Bug, because that's what it is, and then the XP farm was fully functional. It worked amazingly well, and we were able to get a bunch of XP really fast. This enabled us to fully repair all of our mending gear, and we felt much better about it. Just before leaving the end, we decided to nudge some endermen over the edge. What's a couple more endermen after the thousands we just killed anyway? On day 134, I collected melons with my puppy, then I took him trading, and finally managed to get feather falling 4 on my boots. I felt a special connection with my dog, and we bonded over the campfire. I gave him a blue collar so I could always recognize him, and named him Mark. I then announced to the rest of the dogs that Mark was now the leader of the dogs. Just before going to bed, I saw a pink sheep wandering around our compound. He's having a good time. By day 135, the pumpkin and melon pile had gotten a bit out of hand. I then spent the rest of the day trying and failing to get good trades. On day 136, we started construction on the villager trading hall. We dug out a large area behind the room where the villagers currently were, and started decorating it with stone bricks and spruce wood. On day 137, it was time to get wood. Oh, and I gave a turtle a sapling too. On day 138, we made some more progress on the villager hall, and by day 139, the villager trading hall was finally complete. It was now time to trap some villagers. This was quite difficult to do, but I came up with the method of using water to help me. This trapping process continued all through day 40 as well. It was very annoying to do, but once we completed it, it would be a lot easier to find the trades we wanted. So we kept at it. And by the end of day 40, we had pretty much every villager we wanted trapped. And we went to bed feeling accomplished. The next day we did some more villager stuff, and the next day I took all my dogs to collect some pumpkins and melons. I then proceeded to let my dogs 20v1 a sheep, and the dogs and I watched from the roof as gamers added to the pumpkin pile. Then gamers made the pink sheep multicolored, and I had lost Mark, so I went looking for him and found him pretending to be a sheep. Also during this day, gamers was annoying me, so I set my dogs on him. Day 143 was filled with us trying to get better trades from villagers. On day 144, I murdered a lazy villager who didn't want to get a job. And also on this day, we finally got an Unbreaking 3 book. This was massive because it would make our elytras a lot better. On day 145, we were both tired of boring villager stuff, so we decided to set out and get a horse each. We managed to tame a horse each, and they were great. But sadly, I accidentally jumped my horse into lava. The next day I realised I didn't want a horse anyway, so I grew a horse and then flew home through a mountain. Meanwhile, gamers had to walk his smelly horse home. Then I did some farming and of course murdered the escaped cow. Later on, when gamers and his horse arrived, I welcomed them back with carrots. Day 147 was a day filled with upgrading my armor, making a sugarcane farm, and killing mobs to get XP to repair my elytra. On day 148, I started gathering emeralds by trading. We then captured a zombie and named him Zombie. We then let Zombie have his way with our Unbreaking 3 villager and turn him into a zombie villager. Gamers was then able to cure our zombie villager with some weakness potions and a golden apple. This played a massive part in our goal to get a full beacon, as we figured emeralds would be the easiest resource to go for. These cheap trades would make getting emeralds very easy. So we continued to infect and cure villagers for the next couple of days. Day 151 was here and I found Gamer's horse being a bit weird. So I did what any normal person would do and put him inside the 69 statue. I should probably mention that we were also trading for emeralds all day. For the next in-game week, we set our sights on getting a full emerald beacon. So each day was filled with as much trading as possible. So I'll just tell you one or two interesting things that happened each day. So as you can see, on day 152 we ran out of pumpkins and melons to trade, so we decided to hollow out the inside of the pile. On day 153 we tortured a zombie. On day 154 I took care of a skeleton who was trying to steal our emeralds. On day 155 I bred my dogs and said goodnight to them. On day 156, we ran out of pumpkins and melons again, so we had to chop down the rest of the pile. And Gamer's horse was back there being weird. I don't know why he likes that corner so much. And on day 157, absolutely nothing interesting happened. So here's some footage of me trading. And on day 158, after hundreds of trades, we finally had enough emeralds to make a full emerald beacon. We were very happy to have completed this goal. So then we set to work placing the emerald blocks underneath our monument so that we could use it as a proper full beacon. And there it was, our very own functional Speed 2 beacon. I celebrated by hitting gamers with my sword. I then got a bit carried away and spent all of day 159 using Gamer's horse as target practice. Gamers didn't like this, so he ran away for the day. On day 160, we decided it was time to take on a challenge. So we spent the next 2 days getting prepared to conquer some bastions. We thought this would be good practice for our goal of conquering a raid. And so on day 160, I made a god shield with Unbreaking 3 and Mending on it. Oh, and I also added a banner to it to make it look cool. I spent the rest of the day sorting out my inventory while I was waiting for gamers. The next day, I made a nether helmet. This was basically just a gold helmet with protection 4 and Unbreaking 3. I just wanted to get every bit of protection I could possibly get. I then selected 3 dogs to bring with me, and then we concluded we were ready to take on a bastion. So we charged into the nether and defeated our first bastion. But sadly, my recording corrupted, so here's some footage from gamers instead. The following day, we decided we hadn't had enough of conquering bastions yet, so we took on a second one. It was hard work navigating through their large structures, but we managed to get through them, and we defeated any enemies with our bows, as we figured that was the safest way to kill them. We managed to get a few gold blocks and some nice loot, and then we returned back to the overworld. Also, if you're wondering what happened to my axe, I accidentally dropped it in lava on day 162. It was a very bad day. On day 164, we just spent the day organizing all our stuff. And on day 165, I set out on a mission to build my dogs a bigger house. Firstly, I cleared out the area and patched up any holes in the land. Then I started building the initial walls of the house, and I decided that I was going to build it out of spruce wood and stone. It was going to have to be a fairly large house because I had a lot of dogs, and I was only planning on having more. The next day, gamers began building a mob farm near my doghouse. And obviously the main purpose of it was to give the dogs something to look at. Meanwhile, I continued construction on my doghouse. Day 167 was here and we were both making progress on our builds. I added some detail to the walls and then laid the floor. And then just before night, I started construction on my roof. I started off day 168 by knocking gamers off of the mob farm. Then I got to work constructing the roof of my doghouse. And by day 169, I had finished the roof on the doghouse. And then I decided to use some lanterns to light it up a little bit. Then I needed sand to make glass for the windows, so I turned the Turtles Island into an absolute crater. They tried to scare me, but I showed them I wasn't scared of them and stood up for myself. And they let me go. Just before sleeping, I looked out the window and saw my doghouse. I thought it looked pretty nice, but it would look even better with windows. Day 170 was here, and the inside of my doghouse was still looking a bit dark. So I decided to use some glowstone and covered it up with some bright blue carpet, which happens to be all of my dog's favorite color. Gamers then wanted to show me the mob farm, so we AFK'd it for a couple of minutes and then went down to check the results. I was amazed. After only about 1 minute of being AFK, we had managed to get this many resources, and the mobs just kept on falling. I then left with some extra rockets to put the windows in my doghouse. On day 171, we spent the entire day AFKing at the mob farm. We needed a lot of bones for bone meal and gunpowder for rockets. And on day 172, I finally showed the dogs the finished house. From the looks on their faces, I could tell they liked it. But they were quick to point out that I missed a window. I then left them to enjoy the new house and gave a rocket to a turtle. Then this other turtle asked if he could have a rocket too, but I said no. After that, I spent the rest of the day trading. On day 173, I forgot to press record. The next day, we started converting the Luke the Notable monument from wood to emerald blocks. We didn't have enough emerald yet, but we were making progress. For the rest of the day, we cured some more zombie villagers. On day 175, we decided we'd had enough for trading, and we wanted to take on our last goal. So, we got prepared to take on a raid. To do this, we made sure we had lots of potions and gapples, as well as lots of food. These potions and gapples would come in very clutch later on. Then I bred my dogs for what I thought could be the last time. On the morning of day 176, we were very nervous as we set out on our mission to conquer a raid. Firstly, we returned to an enemy base which we had seen earlier in the days. We then proceeded to slaughter as many pillagers as we can so that we could get the bad omen effect. These pillagers weren't really a problem for us because of our insane gear, and they would prove much easier than some of the other mobs in the raid. So after we had finished destroying the pillager outpost, we headed to the snow village to start a raid. As soon as we got there, the raid started and we clambered to safety, building a nice little outpost on top of a hut. It wasn't the prettiest, but we thought it would help us survive. The first wave was easy and we managed to take them all out with our bows. We were feeling quite confident at this point. So for the next wave, we decided to go on foot, and we were able to defeat this wave by working together. The next wave was the first time we had seen a Ravager in this hardcore world. We were quite scared, but we managed to kill it. And with the final witch killed, that was that wave completed too. This next wave was full of witches and vindicators, so I decided to take refuge in this pig pen. Later on in the wave, I decided to use my speed potion and strength potions to go on foot and slaughter the enemies that way. It proved quite efficient and I managed to get myself a totem of undying. Throughout this next wave, the potions came in clutch, and I managed to drive by a lot of the enemies and kill them in a couple of hits. In the next wave, we were overwhelmed by the sheer amount of enemies, so we took refuge on a tree. But sadly, I got knocked down into all the enemies, so I splashed myself with a regeneration potion and ran away as fast as I could. The enemies were chasing me down, but I managed to bow them away. I noticed the sheer amount of Vexes in the sky, so I decided to take down the guy who summons them. But right as I thought things were going well, a witch hit me with a poison potion. This forced me to retreat into a house and hope I didn't die. I ate a golden apple and Vexes were flying through the walls and hitting me. I thought it might be all over, but luckily I recovered from the poison and managed to rejoin the battle. Then it was time for the final wave. I was perched up in our little tower, but Gamers was in trouble. He thought he was going to die and there was 3 Ravagers chasing him. So I came to his rescue. I managed to take one out immediately and then we kept on running and shooting behind us. Eventually all the Ravagers fell and we managed to rejoin the battle. This guy snaps me with his claws, but I managed to take him out shortly afterwards. Then it was just a matter of killing the 10 to 20 Vindicators left. But this was no easy feat, as we knew they could kill us in about 3 hits. The final witch poisoned me, but it didn't matter because we were victorious and we had completed all 3 of our goals. We then collected all the totems we could find and headed back to our base, feeling very happy that we had not died and we had completed all of our goals. We stopped by at the XP farm on the way back to repair our items, and all of my dogs were waiting in the bedroom to welcome us back. Day 178 was a day of experiments. Firstly, I flew 1,000 blocks in the air and then dropped to the ground, just to make sure my totem was working, and luckily it was. Gamers then tried it, and thankfully his worked too. Then, I wanted to see if I could take the full force of a creeper. And to my surprise, I could. We felt like absolute gods at this point. Day 179 was just spent curing and trading with some villagers. And day 180 was more of the same, but I also got prepared to go netherite mining by making some fire resistance potions. So on day 181 I went into the nether and did some netherite mining. The whole reason I decided to go netherite mining was to try and get us full netherite tools, as this was one of the goals we didn't complete in 100 days. Meanwhile, gamers continued grinding for emeralds. And in day 182, I ran out of beds, so I had to return to the overworld, where I was finally able to use a bed to sleep. The next day, I returned to netherite mining, but I was getting very unlucky, and by the end of day 184, I was fed up of it, so I returned to the overworld with only 14 pieces of ancient debris. On day 185, I did some farming and trading. And then later on in the day, I saw Jeb just vibing in the cow pen. Day 186 was here and it was time to make a lot of puppies. I then cleaned all my dogs in this pond and started working on a special building project with gamers. Day 187 was spent murdering cows and making banners for our building project. The main purpose of day 188 was to remind you to smash that subscribe button. And yes, I did almost die for that. After building the subscribe plane, we now had one main focus, and that was converting all of the Luke the Notable statue into emerald. We made some more progress on day 189, and grinded farming and trading for all of day 190 and most of day 191. And that's because I spent a little bit of day 191 taking Gamer's horse on a walk to my doghouse. I then left him there for a nice little sleepover. The next day I picked up Gamer's horse, and then we continued to emerald grind for the next few days. And then finally, by day 195, we had a full emerald tower. We hope that we made Luke the Notable proud. My excitement got the best of me and I killed Gamers to celebrate, but luckily he had a totem. So on day 196 it was back to netherite mining for me. And by the end of day 197 we managed to make ourselves full netherite tools. So no more bullying us in the comment section, guys. On days 198 and 199 we spent our time AFKing at the mob farm to get gunpowder and collecting flowers for fireworks. Oh, and Gamers also built a very nice redstone contraption to launch the fireworks. So on day 200 there wasn't much left to do, but sit back and enjoy the show. We had survived 200 days in hardcore Minecraft. This video took us over 40 hours to make, so please remember to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also remember to go and check out Gamer's video in the description below, because we did a lot of different things in these 200 days. Anyways guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.